morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm great. How you doing, Austin?
I'm doing awesome. Can I tell you what I'm laughing about?
What you got?
We were just talking about the itinerary of what to talk about today.
Yeah.
And at one point during that conversation, you went, I don't know. We probably should talk about real estate. So, hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Real Estate Q&A. I'm Austin Pothast. I'm the Director of Sales, and Mike Perna is the CEO of the Perna team. And today we're probably going to talk about real estate.
Probably going to talk about real estate.
It's so funny. Anyway, how are you doing?
Man, I'm fantastic. I slept great. How about you?
You slept like a baby?
I did. It was needed. Yeah, you too?
I woke up about 6 and my brain was racing with stuff, so I started working on some stuff. But, you know, the life is good. We're good. Getting a haircut today at 1:30. Family pictures tomorrow with the new baby.
Nice.
Going to the Michigan game tonight. Like, life is good. Life is good. That's where we're at. 9/11, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Can you believe it?
No.
Can you believe it? Seriously. That's crazy.
You know, when the pandemic first started, I was talking to a young guy on the team, and I was trying to explain to him how much life changed before and after 9/11. And it's totally different. And what's interesting is this time of year is all the documentaries come out and all the things come out and like you relive those stories of the heroes and the sacrifice and it's like, God, man, it's hard not to get emotional. Like people giving up their lives to help other people. And,
yeah,
you know, we try to find so many, here's the thing, man, we try to find so many things wrong with, I don't know, our country, our politics, like everything's divisive. You know what I mean? Like everything's controversial, everything's divisive. And the truth is like, look, man, I sit in the middle, like I got a next door neighbor on this side who's like super conservative, and I got a next door neighbor on my other side who's super liberal. And all three of us get together and congregate and talk. And it's like, sometimes we focus so much on what divides us instead of what unites us. And the reality is that we're a country of neighbors that love neighbors. God, it's just that in people, you know, and I look back on that 20 years ago, Mike, completely different than I thought about it then. I mean, then I was in college, you know what I mean? Yeah. I look back at it now, and there's firefighters and people working in the buildings and in police officers and all and then soldiers overseas, all these like, and they have a family and kids and they sacrifice their lives to save other people. I don't know. There's too many stories to even tell. It's like, but to sacrifice something like that and what we all sacrifice, but totally different time, man. And the love that I don't know, man. It's just like the love that we share as neighbors to neighbors really matters.
Yeah.
We talk about like real estate. Sorry, I'm going on and on and on. We talk about real estate. And sometimes we say the line, sometimes we say this to you guys. Matter of fact, about every week we say this to you guys. We feel like the luckiest people on earth because we get to accomplish everything that's important to our lives by helping a lot of families accomplish what's most important to them. And it really is about the families and about the people. And I don't know, and like we really mean that sentence, just so you know. Like we talk about it all the time. We really, really mean it. We get to accomplish everything we want in our lives, but the reality is that happens because we're serving other people. And I think at the heart of it, that's who we are as a country. It's like we serve other people and we lift other people up on our shoulders. I just think that's who we are. And we're, I don't know. Sorry, I'm rambling. What are your thoughts?
And I remember, and you're right, we were in college, right? And I remember driving to school and starting to hear about it on the radio, because at that point it was either radio or CDs.
Yeah,
Right.
I heard it on WJR. Yeah. I
And
couldn't afford cable television at the time. Yeah.
yeah, and I was listening to 89X. 89X cut out, which was the alternative radio station at the time. I don't even know what format it is nowadays, but it may still be. Yeah. I remember finally getting to Wayne State and then being turned around and sent back home. And I was in disbelief. I was in disbelief that the United States could have been attacked in any way, because it had not happened.
It hadn't happened since 1941.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
No, it hadn't. I mean, the continental United States had not undergone an attack from, well, not even the continental, the entire United States, from Pearl Harbor to that moment in time.
Oh, it's a good point. Continental United States hadn't received an attack since what, 1812?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Since the British invasion.
Good God, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing. Which is amazing, and it did change everything. It literally changed everything on a dime. It started the longest running war in U.S. history. It brought us, which is Afghanistan. It brought us into Iraq. It brought us more onto the world stage. A stage that we have been kind of pulling back from, militarily at least.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing series of events that happened directly after that. Right? We had the stock market shut down for 4 days, which again was crazy.
Dude, the stock market shut down for 4 days. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. And then when it reopened, it immediately dropped 15% day one.
Yeah.
Yep. Trillions of dollars wiped out. And it was an amazing, just cataclysmic series of events that happened after that. That, to your point, it took our troops overseas for 20 years. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that people have started to forget again that at the end of the day, we may have differences of opinions, but we are all Americans. And those difference of opinions, whether it's your conservative neighbor on one side or liberal neighbor on the other side, is just people trying to do the best they can for their families.
Yep.
And that's the root of it. And I think sometimes we forget that that's really the baseline of where we're coming from. And it wasn't always that way.
Yep. You know, I was listening to I forget the guy's name. He's a conservative guy.
Thank you, Cody.
I listen to as many things as I can from both sides of the aisle. I really do. I think it's important to understand how people think. I just do. But anyway, he was a conservative guy, and he said something that I agree with. He said he was eating. I forget the guy's name, and I'm sure whoever it is controversial because everybody's controversial. But he was eating dinner with like a German colleague of his and a French colleague, just European colleagues of his, and they were kind of bashing some of the decisions that America had made on the foreign policy stage. And by the way, we've certainly made our mistakes. You know what I mean? And we're actively making them, and all of it. It's just, we make our mistakes just like everybody else. And he had posed the question back to his German colleague and his European colleagues. He said, "What would happen if America wasn't the superpower? What would happen if China was the superpower?" And they said, "Well, the world would be a lot less free, right? And we make a lot of mistakes as a country, but I really think, and by the way, I'm sure people could argue even that point with me to the moon, but I really think at the end of the day, we really, I think we try to do right by people. I don't know. I just do. We don't always get it right, but I think as a whole, I think us, United States citizens, and the leaders that we elect, and the people that sacrifice their lives and businesses to be leaders of our country, and I think at the end of the day, we really do try to do the right thing, and that really got pulled into the forefront on September 11th, 2001. And it's funny how where we are 20 years later, good, bad, or otherwise, it's just observation, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like threading a needle, which I can appreciate.
Yeah,
and I can appreciate those are not easy decisions. And sitting here in Royal Oak, Michigan, I'm not privy to all the information, although I know a lot of us, myself included, like to be,
like backseat drivers.
Yeah, like backseat drivers, or I was gonna say armchair coaching, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's easy to look into the past and with 2020 hindsight say, yeah, no, they should never have done that, or they should have done this, which is easy. And it is a hard needle to thread because, I mean, to your point, looking at something like a China, just their last 12 months, last slew of laws that they put into place have been extremely restrictive, good, bad, or otherwise. I'm not going to comment on them, on whether it's a good thing, but most recently in the last 2 weeks, they enacted another restriction on people that are 18 and under can't play more than 3 hours per week of video games.
Yeah.
And their devices are actually timed out, which is craziness. And I'm sure that people are finding workarounds and things like that because there's no foolproof system. But that's the system we could live in. And there's an argument to be made that kids shouldn't be playing as many video games. They should be spending more time on their learning and their. But is that totalitarianistic way? Blah 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 blah. The words in my head, I'm just not bringing it out.
Hey, that would have cleared out the entire board of Scrabble. Totalitarianistic.
Yeah, that would have. But is that the right way to do it? As Americans, we think no.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in the Declaration of Life, Liberty, and Happiness, it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The happiness part was never promised.
Yeah.
All that was promised is the liberty to pursue happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting times, man. You know what's crazy? Even and don't get me wrong, we help a lot of families, and we do a thing, and as far as real estate is concerned, we're a relatively large organization, right? And how about this? We're national players, right? I mean, we really are, though. We really are. And there's decisions that hit your desk. Now, look, you and I talk about them. And we figure it out oftentimes together. And our other leaders on the team, we talk about it. But at the end of the day, there are decisions that hit your desk that are like, that's it. We can't figure it out. You've got to decide. You're the CEO, right? And there's stuff like that. That's literally the president of the United States. That's literally their job. Every day they go in and they have to try to figure out the stuff that nobody else can figure out. It's like, okay, you decide. We're at an impasse. You decide. Same with the Speaker of the House. Same with a lot of our elected officials. It's like,
yeah.
And by the way, they have to make decisions all the time where it's like something might be really good for one person and horrible for another person, and they have to make that decision. They have to decide. I mean, look, in times of war, it's like even this Afghanistan thing. And look, I have my opinions on how we've handled it. I think a lot of people do. I don't think anybody's been cheering how Afghanistan's been handled, but at the end of the day, it's like our presidents have to make that decision knowing people are going to die. That's a different animal. You know what I mean? I've never had to make a decision in my life about whether or not someone lives or dies. It's like,
no, me neither.
Never in my life. Yeah,
and I hope never to.
I hope never have to make that decision. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I have to agree. Yeah. Anyway,
It's
9/11.
a different world that we
So
live
anyway,
in.
so I was saying to this person, Mike, God, man, the world before 9/11 was totally different from the world after. And
Oh yeah.
this is like right when the pandemic was starting. And this agent said to me, he's like, well, don't you think this could be that? And I was like, I don't think so, man. I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain it, but just life was, and I was trying to explain it to him. And that was early on in the pandemic. And now here we are, whatever, a year and a half later into the pandemic. Like, and I actually agree with him. I actually think maybe life is going to be more different after this than what it was after 9/11, or at least, you know what I mean? Or at least
Yeah.
along the same. That's crazy to think about too. We're living through an active 9/11 kind of.
Well, and before this, I mean, there was no TSA.
Yep.
Something as simple as that. Something just as simple as how well scrutinized passengers are getting onto a plane. Before this, there wasn't the Patriot Act. And what that means to us is, well, like in real estate, for example, if you're wiring money, like if you were wiring money before this for a closing, I could literally stop at the bank, wire the funds, and then drive over at the closing, and the title company will have already had the funds and verified it.
Sure.
Now, anything in the amount of 10,000 and over is stopped and inspected by the Fed, specifically to make sure it's not being used in some sort of a terrorist activity.
Yep.
After 9/11, there's actually a document that people sign when they're buying a home saying that, I will not store, hazardous material, which was there before. I will not use it for any use other than it's intended to use residential or a C1 commercial or C2 commercial or whatever that looks. But then they added in, I will not use it for terrorist activities. Like all of these things have changed, and they seem minor, but it stacks up to big differences.
Yeah.
Which also leads to another question that was posed this week on an article that I was reading. So before this, there were basically 4 major indexes, like the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, the Nikkei, things like that, right? That controlled 90% of all trading. But now there are 20 to 25 indexes, and it's all spread out. Like the floor, like the New York Stock Exchange, the NYSE, like that floor, like if you watch the 80s movies or 70s movies or even 90s movies, and you see all these guys out there with their paper and their bidding, and calls are coming down and runners are running back and forth, it exists anymore. None of that actually. It's all electronic.
Yeah.
Like literally, the floor is almost dead all the time. If you look at it, it's almost all done exclusively by a computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of it's done right here in real time, which again is crazy to me.
My first deal, Mike, my first deal that I did, I think I only did maybe one deal like this, but my first deal that I did, this would have been 2003. And I don't know if it had more to do with like us switching over computer systems or something. I don't know. But I used carbon copy. There was like the white and then the green and the yellow, or I don't know, the white, yellow, red.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Everybody got their copies. I used carbon copy. It's like it was crazy.
I remember that.
Yeah, remember carbon copy? Crazy.
God, it's crazy. The internet was just beginning to really be a thing. Like it was really just coming. It was just a different time. Different time. Flow of information was slower, even though we had the internet. Different time.
Back in those days, I responded to every email I received. It was like a thing to get an email. You were like, oh, look, I got an email. You've got mail.
Yeah.
Now I'm delete. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to respond to this one.
Pretty much.
Anyhow. So
anyway,
I think we're getting away from the main message. It's night and day, but the main message here is like for real. And you hear this all over the place this time of year. It's like to the heroes and the people that lost their lives, but for real, to sacrifice your life for another human being or another American it's like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. And that's the way we love each other in this country. We really do. Even though we argue over differences of opinions and philosophies, like that's who we are as a country.
Yeah. And then you've got guys that came in later in life, like I'll use Jon Stewart as the example.
Yeah.
went in front of Congress and fought for the firefighters and police officers to get proper medical coverage because they didn't. After 9/11, these guys that ran towards the fire, not away from, right? And 99.9% of people run away from it, not towards it, just natural instinct. They overcame their natural instincts and they overcame all of that, whatever's happening in their head, to run towards something to help somebody. As a country, for almost a decade, we forgot them.
Yeah.
And thank you to Jon Stewart for bringing light to that and being so impassioned about it.
Yeah.
And if anybody hasn't seen the video, Google, Jon Stewart firefighters Congress. It's out there, and it's worth a watch. And today of all days, it's worth a watch.
Yeah, it's a good one. And politics aside, just
it's not a political thing. It's not a political
thing. Yeah.
This was not a left thing or a right thing. This was our government failed some of our citizens thing. Simple enough.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
Good to talk about. It's good. It's really good.
It is. And we got a lot going on in real estate, so we should probably get to talking about that as well.
Yeah. We'll probably. What do you want to talk about today? Yeah, we probably should talk about real estate.
Yeah, we've got simmering. So one thing over the last 30 days, which has really come to the forefront, is we saw how, and I'm going to put this out there because actually somebody had emailed me yesterday and felt that in one of my videos I was taking a side. Didn't come out and even say that I was taking like which side, either one side or the other, but felt that I was taking a side. I wasn't taking a side. If you go to YouTube,
felt like you were taking a side on
watch
what?
this, just real estate market update. And one thing I mentioned is a government failure on getting emergency funds into the hands of tenants so they can pay landlords, right? Because we had a moratorium, which was great, and for what it's worth, there was a reason for it, and there were funds set aside to mitigate against it, because your average landlord out there is just an everyday person who owns one or two more properties than their own, and they're looking to create a little bit of extra wealth for their kids and for their family. Yeah. Right? That's all it is. I mean, the majority of landlords are simply just regular folk that you run into at the grocery store every day. Yeah. And it has been exceptionally hard on a lot of these guys, both tenants and landlords, because when the tenant loses their job and they stop paying and there's an eviction moratorium, then the landlords now are paying 2 or sometimes even 3, sometimes 4 mortgages to keep their credit afloat and to stay afloat and to do all of that. And thousands of people's bank accounts have just been drained. Yeah. And where I positioned myself had failed because they had set aside $14 billion to help tenants, but only 11% of the funds were actually used. And come to find out, around 44 states just misdeployed. And I didn't make it clear enough to say this wasn't, let's say, a red thing or a blue thing. It was a state government thing.
Yeah, sure.
It's not a side or a political party, and I want to be clear on that. It was both or all. Right? There was a program in place. The deployment of the program simply failed.
Yeah.
And even the Treasury Department said government failure. And I use their own words very purposefully. So I just want to make that clear that I'm not taking a side, but I do consider 89% of those funds not being deployed and people not being able to even get access or find access to those funds. I do consider that a failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I saw that comment. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, and it was a direct email to me, and I graciously thank the gentleman that sent it, because it was not my intention to come off as being on one side or the other, but just speaking to the facts to raise the awareness around it, because people like Suzette, who's on right now, are hurting, and she's just a regular person.
You know, that's what's interesting. I think sometimes what ends up happening is people, there's a contingent of people, and they look at like landlords. You hear the word landlords and you think that same with the word businesses, right? Business. And they think big conglomerations. The reality is the majority of businesses in America and the majority of landlords in America are mom and pop shops.
Yeah,
Somebody that owns a couple of properties.
they are.
So like imagine you're just a quote unquote mom and pop shop landlord and you own 5 properties and 3 of those tenants aren't paying. It's like now you're paying 4 mortgages to keep your family afloat.
It's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not see that comment. That's really interesting.
It was, and I appreciate the gentleman it had made it very directly to me. But that also means that if one guy did, there are a lot of people that didn't.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And that's okay.
Very interesting. Actually, speaking of investors, you were on Fox News.
Yes.
And they ran a little story. Here, you want me to play the video?
Yeah, let's play the video.
Talk a little bit about that? Okay.
Definitely. While you're doing that, I'm going to grab my coffee cup I left on the counter.
Yeah, go share the coffee. All right, let's see Chrome tab. Here, I'm going to play this.
The housing market may be slowing down, but it's still hot. Not just because of the traditional home buyer.
Investors are now getting in on the action, snatching up properties by the dozens. Fox 2's Roop Raj here now with that story. Roop.
That's right, Monica and Yule. Individual investors and hedge funds have been buying homes across our area right here in Metro Detroit, and some of them are buying them just to hold on to them long term. Others snatching up single family homes as rentals. Many of them are being flipped. And think about it. The investors really have the upper hand here, and they have the cash. They have no problem buying at asking price or more. The average buyer would have a hard time winning a bidding war with an investor with these deep pockets. But nonetheless, real estate experts say there are plenty of homes out there, a lot of inventory. So don't be discouraged.
Continue to beat the street looking for that right property. Right now, we've got more people going on the market than we have for the previous 7 months. Just last month in Metro Detroit, we saw 17,000 homes come to market, which is 1,000 above July and 4,000 above June. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If you're a home buyer and you're looking this fall and coming up winter, this is going to be your time.
You know, the starter market with homes priced between $150,000 and $300,000, they're most at risk of being bought up by these investors. But Monica, this can be really tough for families out there who are just trying to settle in, and they're getting into a bidding war with investors. That's hard.
Yeah. So what do real estate experts have to say to someone who does get into one of these bidding wars?
Well, there's a couple of things. Buyers can give themselves an edge by trying to give up some contingencies. Many buyers are waiving their mortgage or appraisal contingencies. Not as big of a deal if you're doing this and able to with cash. Also, work with a lender to budget for inspections and get pre-approved beforehand. If you know how much money you may have to put down, you can prepare for that ahead of the time before you actually get into the market.
Yeah, good advice. Thanks, Roop.
So, all right. So paint the picture. So Fox News, they were doing a story around investors buying up properties and kind of how that impacts inventory. And they reached out to you as an expert opinion. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So we've seen investors really come to the forefront, and we've been fortunate here in Michigan that we don't have too many of those what they kind of call institutional investors or companies that are essentially publicly traded, right? On a national level, places like Nashville, Phoenix, Fort Lauderdale, parts of California have really been hit hard by this, and it's really pushed prices just through the roof, and it's just outbuying. That people are able to, these institutional investors are able to outbid and outbuy regular folks, just families trying to looking to try to get into their first or second properties. And it's been a problem. Right? So there's an estimated $60 billion being funneled into single family residential properties this year by companies. And those companies include, Open Door, which is lesser known, or Zillow, which is greater known. Right? BlackRock is back in the game again. And they took themselves out of the game back in 2014 because they felt that home values were kind of getting back up towards, a peak or a ceiling, which clearly they were wrong. And now their economists in 2020 are telling them, hey, real estate prices are going to continue to move up. They may not be the 18 or 20% that we've seen year over year, which was wild, by the way, but they will move up a steady eddy 3 to 5%. So as a company, as a real estate investment trust, we need to start getting more into properties, not less into properties. So those guys have re-entered the market in a big way. I mean, we're at that point where the companies are right now responsible for 8,000 home purchases per month. And that's a huge number. It's a huge number. It's just a huge number.
We've been a little insulated here in Metro Detroit compared to other areas in the country.
Yeah.
Why?
Most of it is because our neighborhoods are smaller. So let's take Zillow, for example, which finally moved from being just a marketing firm to being an actual player in purchasing real estate, right? They're the number 2 purchaser of homes company-wise in the nation right now. And you can look at an area like in Nashville, call any real estate agent in Nashville, they're highly this. The reason why we've been insulated is because our neighborhoods are smaller. Many of our neighborhoods are older. So most of these companies are targeting build dates between 1990 and 2015. And they're targeting neighborhoods with 1,000 or more homes. Our average neighborhood has 250 homes. The reason the 1,000 number is important is because they're less boots on the ground like a real estate agent or a home buyer, and they're more using an algorithm to tell them what the property's worth. But at 250 homes in a neighborhood, they don't have enough sales data at any given point in time to give them an accurate read. At 1,000 homes in a neighborhood, at even a 5% turnover rate, that's 50 sales versus 250, which is 12.
Yeah.
Right. With 12 sales, 1 or 2 foreclosure sales, or 1 or 2 people that got wildly above market expectation could actually skew that number. On 50 sales, 1 or 2 people that got either wildly above or wildly below, they don't really skew the number that much.
Yeah.
Right. So we have been fairly protected, which is good.
Paint a picture of a difference between a neighborhood in Gilbert, Arizona, right? Some suburb of Phoenix versus a neighborhood here like Royal Oak.
Well, that's it. If you're looking at like a Gilbert or a Chandler or any of those outlier areas in Arizona, most of those neighborhoods that are being built or have been built, they're 1,500 to 3,000 home neighborhoods. And they only have 8 floor plans. That's it. So you've got, let's call it 2,000 homes worth of 8 floor plans. They've got 30 sales this year of your floor plan. So it's really super easy for them to say with just an algorithm without even looking at the house, okay, this is our offer because of these other 20 sales that were identical floor plans to yours. Easy to tell that. Super easy to tell that. In Michigan, it's a lot harder to tell that. And how this is showing up, like we've got a counterpart in Nashville that we mastermind with, and he had a home that essentially market value is about 500. Zillow came in and bought it for 540. Nice little windfall for the seller, but the buyers in that market, Zillow as a company can very easily outprice any individual buyer. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of that just goes back to, rents are at a super high level right now. They are. We're at the highest point we've ever been for rents. And the way Zillow looks at it is, sure, we may have overbought this house by 30,000, but if we hold on to it for 15 years and we're renting it out and rents continue to increase at the average rate of 3% per year, who cares about $30,000? Because we have a several billion-dollar market cap. We're Zillow. We can wait out the market, and a family cannot.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that? You broke up. What'd you say?
Oh, and I just said that kind of sucks.
It sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, just being completely candid, I think it sucks.
Yeah, if you're in the buy and hold business, buying a home and renting it business.
Yeah.
Well, look, under that example, Zillow overpaid by $30,000 versus what maybe they should have. But the corresponding mortgage payment, like if they borrowed money, right? Mm-hmm. Zillow's coming in and offering cash, but they're borrowing this money from somewhere. Okay.
It's all venture capital funds.
Yeah, they're borrowing the money. So the difference in payment on a 30-year mortgage for that money that they're borrowing is $120 to $150.
Yeah.
And if you're getting a great rent, who cares?
And that's it. And that's all they care about is if they cover the spread plus a little bit, then it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Because in 5 years they will have made up that 30,000 at a minimum at 1% appreciation, 2% appreciation, and we know the appreciation is going to be higher than that.
Yeah.
So for them, that long-term bet, these companies can operate on way razor thin margins, like Open Door, for an example. Like they started more in the Southwest, like a Arizona, Nevada, California, and now they're expanding across the U.S. Their goal was to profit because they were flipping them at first. They were just flipping regular everyday properties, right? And their goal was to profit $1,000 per home.
Yep.
Now, when they started, they were buying 135 homes a month. Okay, $1,000 a home doesn't sound like a lot, but when you do 135 homes a month every month for 12 months, those numbers start getting real big, real quick.
It's a big number.
It's it's just like anything, right? It's like.
And by the way, that means you can get something wrong.
Yeah,
you can if you take on some risk and you get one wrong and you lose $5,000, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay because you make $6,000, so you're still net $1,000. It's like Meijer or Kroger or Target or some of these other grocery chains that's squeezing out your average mom and pop shop, right? Like Hiller's Market here in Southeast Michigan no longer exists. They just couldn't compete. So they ended up selling out to Kroger, right? So, and I worked for Kroger in high school. And I was very interested in that business model. Come to find out, Kroger makes 1/2 of 1 penny on each item sold.
Yeah.
Not 0.5%, 1/2 of 1 penny per item. So if your average item is $2, they're making a little bit under 0.25% profit. But it's okay because there's 1,000 Krogers, and look how busy those things get and how much product they're moving at any given point in time. I mean, you walk in on a Saturday to a Costco and look at those lines. They don't need a lot of profit because they're running the volume game.
Yeah.
And these guys are the same way.
Yeah. It's literally the difference. I'm really glad you brought up that. I was actually thinking to myself, it's like the difference between a Kroger and a 7-Eleven, or your normal investor. Like, we network with investors all the time, and these guys, in order for them to take on the risk, they need to make healthy margins, like healthy margins, like
100%,
like 20% margins.
Yeah.
And some of these big firms could come in and make a 1% margin, and it's fine.
Well, that's right. Yeah. And then your convenience store versus, like mega shopping center is a great example of that. I mean, if you go buy a gallon of milk at Speedway or 7-Eleven, what are you paying? $6, $5? Go to Kroger, you're paying $3.
Yeah.
To do $5 or $6 because of how little they have that's running through the store at any given point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Speedway by my house, and it always looks busy, quote unquote, with 2 or 3 cars there. But you drive by a Target or a Meijer, that's a little busier.
Busy.
With a couple hundred cars in the parking lot at any point in time.
Yeah. Why don't they play music in Target? It's weird.
I never noticed that.
Oh, it's eerie, man.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I usually have my AirPods in and I'm just listening to whatever I'm listening to, like an audiobook or something. Yeah. Yeah. I do the same thing at the malls and stuff. I just ignore all that anyway.
Like if you close your eyes, you can smell Target. It's like that mix between popcorn on the shop that you first walk into and like the cleaning solutions. It's like you could smell Target if you think about it.
Oh, that's weird.
It is though. It's a sterile place anyway.
I don't know, man. I get my eggs from Target, and that's about it. I go straight in to the right. I get my Vital eggs because they're like local farm sourced, which I like, and then I get out.
Yeah, Amy says you could smell the Starbucks. See, I'm onto something here.
100%.
It's like that mix between the Starbucks and the popcorn from the thing.
Well, and that's a little bit of an upgrade. I mean, back in our day, we had Caesars in them.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. That was so. I remember when Little Caesars went into the Kmart that was local to me. I was so excited. I was like, "Wow, these guys have arrived." She said, "It smells like love."
That's so funny, man. Because when my wife starts to get ordering, I'm just like, "You got anything you need to get at Target? Get out of here."
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Okay, so these guys are buying up. They're buying up big amounts of properties, which is
Yeah.
and we've already got low inventory anyway.
Yeah. Which, and to be fair, there were three major companies, BlackRock being kind of the head board, 8, 9, and 10 down markets. We're also buying thousands of houses every single month. And those guys more helped owners and buyers because they provided some sort of a baseline number of transactions that were going to be done at any point in time. So the market could only go to a certain low level because there was always some sort of a demand out there, whether it was regular buyers or companies like this. There was always some sort of a baseline demand out there for properties. So at that time, it was considered more of a plus instead of a minus. And there were certain concessions given and certain, tax abatements given to some of these companies because they were buying property to help buoy home prices and stabilize. In this market, it's having kind of an opposite effect, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like I went and saw a house last night. I got a call after the showing letting me know that there were 2 offers above asking price in already. Did I want to make an offer? I had until basically the owner got out of surgery. He's a surgeon, which is 2 hours, and I'm like, come on. And now thinking about that, coming from a place of, in this case, I would probably have needed to bid 2 or 3 or 4% above asking price, which is not a huge number, but it's still a number, and it's still a number beyond the appraised value. Instead of if Zillow was who I was up against, they're going 10% above market value or asking price or whatever that looks like, right?
Yeah.
And that would have priced me right on out of the market. Now, and the answer is I didn't make a house because I didn't love it enough to bid 2 or 3 or 4% above asking, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But even at 10% above, I doubt the other 2 buyers would have stayed in the game.
No.
Why would they? Why would they? It makes no sense.
No sense.
And then the argument on the other side is, well, from July of 2020 to July of 2021, home values rose 18%, which is the most it's ever risen in any 12-month period in American history. So what's to say that making another offer 10% above, you wouldn't be 8 to 12 months down the road?
Yep.
But when we're talking about, a typical family where they've got 10 or 20% to put down or whatever that number is, and then they got to come up with an extra 50 top of that, that's a hard pull.
It's a big deal. Yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Why do you think? I feel like we've been talking about this, and we've been kind of telling this story for 6-8 months now. Why do you think? Why do you think it's getting pushed into the national forefront now?
Simply because the number of properties that are being picked up by these guys. So there have always been these companies for the last 10 years, roughly 10 years now, that have been out there buying 100 homes a month or 150 homes a month. But now some of these companies are buying a couple thousand homes a month. And it's becoming a big deal. More people get affected. It creates news, right? And eventually, and you and I were talking about this, there will probably come some sort of a tipping point where some sort of a law or something will be enacted to help your individual versus the institutional investors. And in fact, if you look at Fannie and Freddie, they made an announcement last week. So Fannie and Freddie have what's called the First Look program, right? So when they foreclose on a home and they put it on the market, a occupant owner, an owner occupant used to have the first 48 hours. Like companies and investors could not bid on that home for the first 48 hours. They could submit a bid, but it wouldn't be looked at. And if you were just a regular everyday buyer, you had the first 48 hours and then they would open up the house. They just recently changed that to the first 7 days. So now on any Fannie, Freddie, and HUD properties, regular folk have the first 7 days to bid on a property. And then if nobody bids on it or an acceptable bid doesn't come in, which acceptable bid for Fannie, Freddie, and HUD is typically within 5% of asking price, then they open it up to investors out there. So
I don't know that I knew that. When did they enact that?
Last week.
Interesting.
Literally last week.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So the government is aware of the issue. And at this moment, they're only doing things to control their own inventory because that's all they can really control that quickly. Because HUD when it comes to properties, they act like companies. Fannie, Freddie being publicly traded on the stock exchange and all of that. Hey, Keith, how you doing? So they can control their own inventory, but it would take some sort of a law change or something magnitude, something that Congress and the Senate would have to enact to change what regular folks can do with their properties. And that's a big ask. That's a big ask. I don't, and again, this is not a taking sides, but anytime that you're putting some sort of a rule in place, telling somebody they cannot accept more money, which is effectively what would have to happen, that's a big ask.
Sure. Yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah. With their own properties, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
They just made a rule change. Easy.
Huh.
Yeah.
What kind of legislation do you think would come down?
Honest to God, I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. I think the only real way would be to cap the amount of total rental properties in the United States and have to do some sort of an application system, which would then affect all investors, not just some. It's been effective for some condo complexes.
It'd be like liquor licenses.
Yeah, like liquor licenses, which is again kind of a weird thing and kind of reminds me of a China thing. But like look at the last down market, right? So a ton of condo stuff, chime in if I'm wrong in any way. But a ton of condo complexes that had no restrictions on rentals before started capping properties, or the percentage, usually around 15, 20, or 25, depending on the association, on how many properties could be tenant occupied or non-owner occupied at any point in time. And then once they hit that level, then you had to go on a waiting list for another landlord to either sell their property or move back into their property. And then you had the opportunity to then rent your property. So when you're an investor right now looking at specifically condos, that's one of the questions you got to ask is, hey, if I'm intending to use this, whether it's now or in the future, doesn't matter. I can be moving into it for a couple of years, but in the future, even my intended use of this property is to rent it out. I need to get a copy of those bylaws right up front and scan those to be sure there weren't any bylaw changes that won't allow me to use this for my intended purpose of purchasing. It's a big thing. It's the only thing that I could see that could shore up this situation.
Do you think it'll happen on the municipality level, or do you think it'll happen on it, assuming this happened, right? Or do you think it would more likely to happen on like a national, statewide, countywide, that kind of level?
Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I do know that it'll bring a lot of happens. I think it's less.
What? Sorry, you broke up. What'd you say?
Oh, I think I do know it's going to bring a lot of lawsuits, whatever, no matter what happens.
Yeah, sure.
Which again goes back to, I mean, like Apple just got through its first round against Epic Gaming, right?
Yeah.
So Apple won and Epic won. There was no clear winner in that one, where it was decided that Epic could sell things outside of the App Store.
Yeah.
But it was also decided that they can't push their people to use outside of the App Store specifically, right? So there was actually a $4 million fine levied on Epic, and the App Store itself has to allow people to buy things in whatever app or game that it is, whether it's, Fortnite or Spotify. It looks like they have to allow those purchases outside the App Store now.
Yeah.
I think this is going to breed a series of lawsuits no matter what happens. And that's okay. It's not like we haven't had real estate lawsuits against municipalities or state governments or federal governments before.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, look at, the city of Detroit. There was a multi-year lawsuit which culminated in, city certificates going away, city inspections going away. Now that was because it was found that.
You know where my brain goes? Like, don't you open up for massive corruption?
Sure. Which interesting thing about this country, I think, versus some of the other ones out there, which this kind of, I think, yes, there may be corruption, and especially in the beginning, right? And this is, again, I'm not taking sides. I want to make sure I'm very clear on that.
Sure.
But a lot of our politicians are simply bought, right? Hence lobbyists, right? and political donations and all of those things. But one thing that I believe to be true is over a long enough period of time, we iron ourselves.
Yeah, there's ebbs and flows. I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
you just gotta, like, if like some of the, by the way, some of the savviest people, this is what Warren Buffett does. He knows where we are on the pendulum on different things.
Mhm.
It's why he says to the average investor, like, just buy good companies and hold on to them.
Yeah.
Buy the S&P and hold on to it. That way you don't have to try to time the pendulum. Like, the pendulum always goes back and forth. We're pretty good about that.
It's really interesting, and you're right about that. Like all the studies in the world have shown. Like, if you look at, I forgot the name of the book that just came out by Morgan Housel. If I remember it, I'll throw it in the chat. But nope, that's not it. But it doesn't really matter when you're buying stocks or bonds or
Psychology of money.
The psychology of money. Thank you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when you buy them, because timing the market high and timing the market low is actually worse than just regular interval purchases. So if you make a steady Eddie deposit every single month and the market goes up, then the market goes down, then the market goes up, then the market goes down. He shows over any 10-year period of time, you will not. You have a 100% chance of making money over 10 years. Actually, Graham Stephen just put out a really good video on this as well, and put out a video on, and actually I should redo this video because it's so good for our people. Show millennials at this moment that have been surveyed, 56% of them completely distrust the stock market and think it's rigged. And I'm wondering how much that has to do with things like, GameStop and Reddit and AMC stock and, things like that, like singular events that have really clouded the news versus the other 10,000 stocks, like a General Motors or a Pepsi or, any of those stocks, right? Or an Apple or Google, where like Alphabet or Amazon, where if you just throw a couple of bucks at it every month, you're making money. You're just making money. I do that with Apple, and I don't care how low the market got a year and a half ago. My Apple stock is still up 30%.
Yeah.
Even though I buy a share or two every month.
Yeah. Graham Stephen. I don't know Graham Stephen.
He's good. He's a YouTuber. So he's a real estate agent YouTuber. He's really interesting, and his videos are nice. His cadence is nice. They're very simple. He just speaks directly into the camera. No, not a lot of flashiness, which I like and I appreciate. I think he likes to call himself a real estate agent, but he's actually making his money from YouTube. I mean, he's got 3.38 million followers, if I remember right.
Yeah, sure.
Somewhere in that range. And to your point, Cody, he does hit the hammer really hard on the credit scores and the FICOs.
Sorry, I'm looking it up while you're talking.
Yeah. He's got several videos where he mentions that FICO score as being the number one way to save money. And he's right. With a great FICO, you get 0 or very low percentage interest rates on car loans. With a great FICO, you get access to better loans for mortgages. You get access to lower interest rates on credit cards, like all of those things. Yeah, which a lot of people don't recognize, and a lot of, and again, not trying to dog on millennials in any way, but we're in a really weird space of time where we've had a lot of corporate fraud happen in the last 20 years. We've had Exxon, we've had all of these other companies. We've had some weird things happening with Reddit and the stocks. And there's a general distrust markets. And the reality is quite the opposite. And he actually put out a video that shows that millennials could be losing as much as $3 million of retirement dollars because a lot of them are choosing to, I'll get to you, Amy. A lot of them are choosing to put their money into something like a savings account or, frankly, their mattress, right? Versus investing in stocks that over a 10-year period will always go up. Which, if you invest in a savings account at a 0.25% interest rate, that means you're actually losing 2.5% to 3.5% per year of value because of inflation, right? If you have $1 and you put that dollar just on a table and you wake up a year from today and grab that dollar, you really only have 96 or 97 cents. Of buying power. Yeah. It looks like $1, feels like $1, tastes like $1, smells like $1, but it's really 96 cents.
Not $1, 96 cents.
It's not $1.
I just had the conversation with my wife. We lose money every month just having money in the savings account. But savings accounts are for security. It's like that's what they're there for.
It's your emergency money. That's really what it is, right? And Amy, that's a great question. So So a great FICO score is considered essentially 750.
I thought they price at
Okay.
740 and above the same.
Yeah.
It's like 740, 750.
720 will get you just about the rate of the day. Some of the best car loans out there, some of the best credit card offers out there, not necessarily the best, but close enough that if you're a 720 versus a 740 or 750, I don't know that I'd wait to get that credit card, because I can then call the credit card later on in life and say, hey, my credit score went up to a 750, 760, 770. I'm paying 9.9%. Can you lower me down? And they'll give you a 7.9 or a 6.9. 680 and above, now you're starting to look at yeah, Cody's got a point. I'll get to you, Cody. 680 and above, you're starting to look at more of a 14 or a 15% in this day on credit cards. You're looking more like a 1.9 or a 2.49% APR on a car loan. You're looking at an 8 to a quarter point bump on an interest rate on a home. It really starts adding up. It sounds like very small dollars, but those small dollars over all three of those payments, whether it's credit card, home, and auto combined, can add up to be a couple $1,000s a year. 620 and above, you can still get a mortgage in this right now. 580, you can actually get an epic. But again, now you're paying a much higher mortgage insurance premium. You're looking closer to a 19.9% interest rate on a credit card. Hard to get below that on anything below 620. You're looking at a 3.9 or a 4.9 APR on a car note. I mean, life gets much more expensive for people without wonderful credit. The easiest couple of ways to get and maintain a credit score, I mean, of course, number one is make all your payments on time. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
A missed payment, a 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day late reported is the number one dropper of credit. The number two dropper of credit is keep your balances on your credit cards at or below 20%, not 50%, 20%. 50% actually starts lowering your score. And anything above 50% lowers your score drastically. I'll use myself as the example. So my credit score floats anywhere between 780 and 650, and it goes up and down several times a year because I have a credit card that I use for business that, I mean, and Austin knows this because he sees the P&L. I run well over $100,000 through that credit card every single month.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on which day of the month they take the sampling of that credit card of when, the Zillow bill hits or, the Facebook bill hits or the Google pay-per-click bill hits, depending on which day, it could look like I'm using 80 or 90% of that credit card, and it just drops my score immediately 80 points. And then to be honest, I never pay the card off every single day, but it reports that way.
Yep. Usage rate. By the way, what are we doing with all those points? Let's go do something fun.
Let's go do something fun.
Let's go scuba diving in Cozumel.
I mean, not now that we can. Let's see. Cavalier Shark Tank talked over his portfolio, kept gave him a good score. Yeah, he's legit. Yeah. And to that point, my dad does like to brag about his 800 plus credit score, but that's only because he's old. That's it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Amy, you're doing great.
Amy, you just keep on beating that drum. You just keep on beating that drum, and you're in a good place right now. If you're almost set, you're in a good place. And again, when banks and companies look at that credit score, they will actually just start throwing money at you, and they're okay doing go above 700 or 720. They know that you'll only take money when it matters. You won't be responsible.
By the way, I'm not a mortgage guy, Mike. So I don't know exactly. There's different tiers.
Mm-hmm.
But Amy, if you're considering buying something, don't let between a 690 and a 720 hold you back. It's probably the difference in I don't even know a few $100s on closing costs. It's just not. Hey, shout out to you! Congratulations.
Yeah,
get your butt over here. We need you.
Yeah,
our clients need you. Anyway.
No, and that's fair. And if you're the difference between a 680 and a 720, there are no real gains. It's not worth waiting on.
I mean, there are gains, but it's not enough to
Yeah, it does not enough to offset. So actually, I'm going to phrase this a little bit differently. So if the choices are, you can rent an apartment for an additional year, or you can buy a property. Now, and if you rent the apartment for another year, you could have a 720 score in a year. That's where you're actually losing money by waiting. because just on what you're getting back on taxes alone, you're going to get back between $1,500 and $2,500 off what you pay your taxes to the federal government. Just that. So if we're talking about a closing cost difference of $200-300, bite the bullet, do it, because you're getting the interest rate of the day anyway at that point. If you're almost 700, if you're above 680, but what you gain is that extra $1,000 back on your taxes, plus you've paid down your loan another $2,000 or so dollars, depending on the price of the property, $3,000, $4,000, $1,000. Plus you're living somewhere. Plus the property is going to go up in value 3 to 5% minimum over the next 12 months. Minimum. Hey, Jess, how you doing? Ah, Carl, got it.
What else you got?
That's all I got, man.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. What do you got?
I got nothing. This is good.
Yeah.
Talk about institutional investors. While they're buying here in Detroit, but we're a little insulated with it. Talked about credit. Talked about 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about money a little bit. It's good. It's good.
Yeah. And Amy, you're right. You're gonna have to get that employment history down. And once you get on going with selling real estate and selling homes, your employment history will follow. Absolutely. And when you're switching jobs like that, absolutely. Like a gap in employment will set you back on buying a home. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what field you're in, but that can be shored up pretty quick, 6, 8, 12 months down the road. Yeah. And I feel a little bit like it's a somber day because it is September 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again,
but
guys,
your loved one's a little closer today for sure.
Yeah. And again, if there's anybody here that's not subscribed to the YouTube channel, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. We drop videos now weekly, and a lot of it on updating of the market, updating on what's going on in local real estate, what you guys need to know, city info, local info, things happening and things to do, events in Metro Detroit, kind of all of it. I'll throw that in the chat one more time.
Cool. Yeah, I like it. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Goodbye. Good job by you. Any predictions for the Michigan game tonight?
I'm ready for the Michigan game tonight. And U of M is definitely going to be winning.
Yeah.
Home game? Yeah.
Home game, night game.
Yeah.
The band is going to do a really cool halftime show September 11th.
Oh, that's cool. I don't even know what the prediction is, but I'm pretty sure U of M is going to nail it.
Okay, let's do it. All right, man. Good job by you.
Good job by you. Let's get out of here.
See ya.